What does the innovation director, Miller Davis, do then? What does your day-to-day look like?
Day-to-days, they all look different, but I would say that if we want to wrap it up into a short description, we can say that my task is to take a look at what we do and identify the struggles or bottlenecks or how we're suffering as a company, and then go out into the market to explore what potential solutions can help us alleviate that pain, and then come back and implement it and make sure that it's a company-wide implementation as well.
Okay, cool. So maybe we could touch upon the pain points and areas of innovation you're currently exploring from a construction perspective.
Yeah, that's a great topic. So, I mentioned to you that I love using this term pain points. And the idea is that everybody has pain points, and depending on your company and your size and how tech driven you are, you'll have different pain points. And even inside the pain points, then you have what I call mosquito bites and shark bites. So the reason I like to bring up the mosquito bites is because if you ask people, do you like to get bitten by a mosquito? Nobody's going to say yes, right? But you can still survive, it's something that annoys you, but you can still go with your day to day. Now, if you get a shark bite, then that can kill you. It's kind of it's an emergency at that point. So why am I bringing that up? Because a lot of the times people get confused into just considering that it is a pain, as opposed to understanding that there's priorities that need to be addressed.
What's the number one pain point you're experiencing right now, construction related?
Yeah, it's
And have you
change.
found the solution?
Yeah, yes. So it's exactly what we're working on right now. It's the integration of our project management tool to our ERP system. Our staff spends a lot of time, and anybody in construction can relate to this when it comes to change management. As ideally we will have a project that the architects create the drawings and that's it. But that bulletins are coming out constantly, RFIs are coming up, and that is changing the cost of the project throughout its life cycle. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. Once you get a bulletin or an RFI, that could turn into a potential change, and you need to review it, and you need to get in touch with subcontractors, which will provide you a quote on how much is it going to cost to do that. Then you turn that into a change proposal that your owner is going to review. And even when that's approved, you still need to upstream that into the owner contract, and then you also have to downstream it to the subcontractors or trade contractors. That takes a lot of time where you're doing it by hand. When you're getting quotes through email, when you're doing the tracking through Excel, that is really painful. And then the other thing is that we use, it's not like we don't use a digital approach to this. We do. We use a system that, unfortunately, it's very accounting driven. So it's not very friendly to the project management staff, and it's just slow. So we need to get away from it, right? And I'm not talking about, I don't want to talk bad about these tools, but a lot of these systems are legacy systems.
How would you advise startups or tech providers to build better technology? And you can't give the answers. Listen to your customer or focus on problems and not your solutions. And the reason I say that is because everyone says that to us. So I'm looking to see whether you have anything unique.
Man, that is the answer. This is something that listen, you don't want to fall for the entrepreneur syndrome, which is you fall in love with this solution and then you invest yourself into it. You develop it, and then you go out into the market and there's no need for it. And how do you solve that? You need to talk to the people that you believe they're going to use it, right? So I know it's hard. It's hard because I've been in that position before, going through the entrepreneur route, and I wanted to pitch something so bad, but people just didn't have a use for it. And you just have to be mindful that if you want to sell it, somebody needs to buy it. If you want to make some money, somebody needs to buy it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks Bytes Podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
All right, Ariel. Good morning, wherever you are.
Hello, Owen. Thank you for having me. Greetings from the Midwest. I'm actually located in Michigan, so great weather. It's been a hard winter, but it's warming up, or maybe it's giving us a glimpse of what spring looks like. So looking forward to that.
Do you get those days in the US where like you think it's coming and then like you'll have a nice day, then the day after we'll be back into the minuses?
Oh yeah, all the
You're like,
time. I'm
what the
actually
hell?
just this week, man, we were. I'm gonna use Fahrenheit, but we were like in high 70s 2 days ago, and then it dropped to like 32. That would be what, like
Uh-huh.
15, 20, and then all of a sudden back to 0 in Celsius.
Zero.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
that
Brutal.
was
Same
brutal.
here. Same here. All right, cool. Let's dive into innovation then. So you're director of innovation, Emily Davis. Could you tell us like perhaps your role in more detail, what you do on a day to day?
Yeah. So just to give kind of like a quick intro, and before I talk about me, let's say about the company that I work with, so that way we can give a better understanding of what I do and things like that. So I work for Miller Davis Company. It's a construction management and general contracting firm located in the west side of Michigan, and we do projects all the way from a lot of education, like K-12. We also do some industrial projects as well, and commercial. So that's basically the area where we typically move around. Most of the projects are construction management, but we also, like I said, we do some GC as well.
Makes sense.
But
And how
then,
many
oh, sorry,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
for it, go on. I think you
No,
were going. I was gonna say rough revenue figures and employees.
yeah, so we oscillate a little bit. You know how it is in construction. Our number, like a sweet spot, will be probably like about 40 to 45 employees. That's our number, and our revenue also. Because it's been some crazy years all the way since COVID. It has oscillated into probably, I could say, like the goal is to, like, always touch the 100 million revenue. That's always the goal. Because of the years that moved a little bit up and down, but that's the goal there right now.
Okay, cool. And you're based in Michigan, but do you do projects across the US or is it sort of more local?
No, it's more local. So we've been spreading out in Michigan. I mean, Michigan is pretty big, so we've been not only so we're on the west side, and we've been trying to expand ourselves into the northern side of northern west, which is Traverse City area, which we opened an office there recently. So we are expanding and it's growing. And back in the day, the company was really big. We had companies all over the nation in the U.S., right? And then it contracted. So I'm not gonna say the goal is to go back to where we were, but slowly and surely, making some progress to expand and continually impacting the industry in a positive way.
By the way, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but you've got a really good podcasting voice. I think you should do more.
I do though, man. I have a podcast in Spanish though. So
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
I have a podcast for I'm originally from the Dominican Republic, and
Okay,
I have a colleague in Spain. We have this podcast that's catered to Latin America, and it started as a BIM podcast, but then things have grown, and I love BIM, and it's always like it's those are my roots and how I got into construction technology. But BIM is very specific, so the idea was expanding it to more people so that people could understand that it's even if you're not doing BIM, you can still do construction technology in your company.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What does the innovation director at Miller Davis do then? What does your day to day look like?
Day to days, they all look different. But I would say that if we want to wrap it up into a short description, we can say that my task is to take a look at what we do and identify the struggles or bottlenecks or how we're suffering as a company, and then go out into the market to explore what potential solutions can help us alleviate that pain, and then come back and implement it and make sure that it's a company wide implementation as well.
Does this pain, is it just construction or are you looking across all departments within the company?
That's a great question. So we started tackling construction specific pains that we had. I call them pain points. But as you start growing and making an impact, then other departments are reaching out and they're like, "Hey, we also need to improve this or that." Or we have systems where like eventually they can talk to each other. So a good example is right now we're going through an implementation where we're connecting our project management system with our ERP system. Well, so it started as a project management project, but because we were implementing a new project management software or solution, if you want to call it, right? But then now we want to go to the next step, which is how can we make sure this information talks to the other departments? Because one of the issues that we can talk about is that when we are addressing construction, we are used to thinking in silos. But those silos, people think that when you say construction silos, you're saying that the architect doesn't talk to the construction company, that doesn't talk to the subcontractors and so on, which is true, right? We've been getting better at it. But you also have internal silos. So like you'll have people create a project, let's say on your project management solution, but then they have to also create it on the ERP. Then they also have to create it on another system as well that is being used. So sometimes even departments inside your own company are not talking to each other. So that silo culture gets replicated all through the industry.
And so your mission right now is the correct term de-silo? I don't know. No, just made that one up. But perhaps your internal tools that you guys currently use across departments. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is enhanced collaboration. And, that's something that you probably heard everywhere else, right? But sometimes, it is as simple as getting people to understand. And I know some people will laugh at it, but it's just the state of, the industry and even getting other people trained. It's like, hey, there's a way that we can all use the same file and we don't have to keep sending all these attachments back and forth. So get people to understand, hey, cloud editing is a thing. And how can we make sure that as a company, we are being consistent on how we're editing files, how we're sharing information. So, one deployment that we actually had a couple of years ago, and it's a big one because you're raising the digital literacy, is deploying SharePoint internally. We were paying for all these licenses because everybody in our company uses Outlook, but back then we were still just using our internal server, which was great. That served its purpose. But as you got exposed into things like COVID back in 2020, if you were not in the office, which you couldn't go to the office, then you couldn't work. Then there were options. You could VPN in, right? But then you know how that goes. That's pretty slow. And then you needed to get files that were big, and then people will typically just like download the information, put it in their machine, but then somebody will go into the server and grab it like an old version. So even when you're not thinking about that, even when you are not even visualizing that there's some sort of collaboration that could be done, hey, SharePoint is here. It's helping us. And I'm not saying SharePoint is the right solution for everybody. There's a lot more solutions out there. But the message is, can we make sure we're using the same environment to edit data or manage our files?
Okay, cool. So maybe we could touch upon the pain points and areas of innovation you're currently exploring from a construction perspective.
Yeah, that's a great topic. So, I mentioned to you that I love using this term pain points. And the idea is that everybody has pain points, and depending on your company and your size and how tech driven you are, um, you'll have different pain points. And even inside the pain points, then you have what I call mosquito bites and shark bites. So the reason I like to bring up the mosquito bites is because if you ask people, do you like to get bitten by a mosquito? Nobody's going to say yes, right? But you can still survive, it's something that annoys you, but you can still go with your day to day. Now, if you get a shark bite, then that can kill you, and it's kind of it's an emergency at that point. So why am I bringing that up? Because a lot of the times, people get confused into just considering that it is a pain, as opposed to understanding that there's priorities that need to be addressed. So the way we like to map this is, okay, you can meet with a department and you can start talking to them and getting their feedback into what are their pain points. What do they struggle on a daily basis? What is something that, makes you hate your job? I know it's a strong question, but it's kind of like sometimes there's things that they're more annoying than they have to be, right?
We all have stuff we have to do. Just like,
yeah, it's like, oh, I have to do this. And then that takes away your energy from the day, right? But
100%.
the idea there is that when you make this list, you can start like tracking, like, okay, how can this impact the bottom line of the company? Like, is this something that we can survive in the next 2-3 years? Or is this something that's going to get us out of business in the next 2-3 years? Or is it going to impact our business substantially? So once you do that, once you start tackling that and you identify your pain points, you can discard your mosquito bites for now. And I'm not saying you're going to forget about them, because the idea is that you're going to tackle your shark bites, and eventually your mosquito bites will become shark bites. Like, it's like now you're going down into the next level of pains, right? But you got to start from the top. Like, what is the most important thing our company needs to address to stay competitive, to be productive, to keep your employees happy, engaged, to allow them to be able to take on more projects. So in order for you to do that, you have to understand what they struggle, what they do on a daily basis. And then once you understand that, and you can have a conversation about like what this process looks like, ideally, you can go out into the market and start exploring what solutions can be out there. And sometimes, I said go out to the market, but sometimes you can look inwards and start mapping how you do things, and you'll be able to identify bottlenecks that were created that they're not needed anymore. And the only reason we do it is the typical phrase, that's how we've always done it. That's how we always done it. Or that's the X company way, right? That's a typical catchphrase. But what some people are not saying is that this process, and they make total sense. Like the way they were created, they probably made sense 20, 30 years ago, when you had to print things out, when you had to like manually sign something. That's probably the reason why there were so many check and balances. But now when you're like working on a computer, and that totally changed the dynamic. So now you have to review, hey, this is the way we're doing it. How many steps in this particular process are real steps that we need to keep? So that's one way I like to think about, like addressing, pain points, basically.
So are you saying that the shark bites are very painful and should be solved? How do you balance the resolution of like the big pain points? You refer to them as shark bites versus the ones that, like, if you get enough of them, they will eventually start to cause you a longer term damage, i.e. the mosquito bites.
Yeah. That is another great question. And, you have to balance things out. You can not only address your shark bites, because shark bites typically, because they're a big problem, they take big time to solve something, typically, right? So you need to try to understand how long is it going to take you to go through an implementation, or like, let's say in my case, like I mentioned, we're going through connecting our ERP system with our project management. That's what we were discussing right before we started recording, right? That is not something you solve in 1 month, right? That is something that is taking us almost a year. So you can not only focus on those, you need to start getting small wins. But then if you go out after all these mosquito bites, just be mindful that you have a budget that you have to respect. So you have, resources that you're limited with, not only money, but also people. And then you need to be mindful of the rate of change that you're implementing into the company. So even if there's a lot of mosquito bites, you can probably not tackle all of them into just one department. So try to be a little bit more holistic, and see, maybe I identify 2 big projects, those 2 shark bites that I'm going to be working on for the next 1-2 years. And in the meantime, I start tackling small mosquito bites. Maybe, the marketing department needs a CRM, because they've been struggling. Well, I should go back. Maybe the marketing department is struggling with business development and tracking leads. Well, that's a simple fix. That is way easier than changing your change management and ERP system, right? So that you can do in a shorter time frame, and it's not impacting project management. You can also go and maybe talk to HR and see if there's something that can be done in HR. So you're like playing multiple projects at the same time. Some of them are simple, some of them are big. Just be mindful that, again, if you try to implement all the changes into one specific department, that can also create chaos, because people need to adjust to the change. And again, the rate of change can destroy you if you're changing too many things quickly. You need to understand that not everybody's is tech savvy, not everybody's tech driven, not everybody loves change, and you don't want to lose the momentum that you're getting.
Makes sense. So, what are some of the shark bites that you guys are experiencing?
So shark bites, they change with time. So if I go back into, let's say, 2020, the big shark bite we had is that we are a construction company. We needed to continue bidding projects, and we couldn't invite bidders. We couldn't meet in one place. We couldn't go into a bid opening and open the bids because people couldn't deliver them. They couldn't go out of their houses, right? So the shark bite then was, how do we keep our bid process intact? And that is very different from our shark bite today. So we were able to solve that at that moment by implementing a solution that allows us to do digital bids, secure digital bids. Very similar process to our traditional way. It's just that it's done digitally. Bidders, they go online into this platform. They provide their number, and they go there and they download the files and everything they need. And now that's, it took us a couple of years, but now has been mastered. So that's no longer a shark bite. Now we still get mosquito bites. We still get small pains because there's always room for improvement. But the biggest problem was that we couldn't get that done. Now we're looking for ways to make it even better. Just continuing on the 2020 conversation. So perfect. We were able to bid a job. That was great. And that was done again digitally. But now it's time to sign contracts. Same thing. So how do we do this? Because we need to mail the contracts, and people needed to go to the office to print them, and the signatures and all that. And that's pretty much what motivated us, and or you also can say forced us to look into digital signatures. And at that moment, again, that was a big pain because we needed to get the contracts finalized. We couldn't do them with the traditional way. And typically that will take about 3 weeks to get done. We moved into digital signatures. Contracts sometimes get signed in a day. So now we still have some pain points with digital signatures and contracts because we're trying to automate it. We're trying to make it more streamlined. We're trying to make it simpler. But the big problem was already addressed. And now, of course, now we have another headache, but it's smaller. The company's still up and running. And the same thing goes on, like I mentioned, we recognized that when COVID happened, we needed to find ways to allow people to be able to continue working, even if they were at their house. So when remote work became a thing, we needed to make sure that the tools that we had available to the company, were keeping us in the competition. So we migrated most of our server data into SharePoint so that no matter where you were located, you could still access that information. And that was not limiting your ability to work. And again, there's many, we could look at each year, and every year there's something that we're tackling. And I like to call it a digital transformation roadmap. That is something that a good practice would be identify the pain points that you have, and then eventually start mapping out. Actually, this is kind of like, it's something that I like to say that I kind of like stole from the product development teams. You know how they have their roadmaps on like what features are going to be coming out later? It's very similar. You want to map out what you're going to be working on and what are your goals and what you want to implement. Sometimes, sometimes we get delayed. Sometimes we want to get something done in November 2024 and already it's March 2025. Well, something happened, but the important thing is that we're constantly moving forward and trying to find ways to, find solutions to the pain points that our company's experiencing and our staff as well.
What's the number one pain point you're experiencing right now, construction related?
Yeah, it's
and have you found the solution?
Yes. So it's exactly what we're working on right now. It's the integration of our project management tool to our ERP system. Our staff spends a lot of time, and anybody in construction can relate to this when it comes to change management. As you know, ideally we will have a project that the architects create the drawings and that's it. But that bulletins are coming out constantly, RFIs are coming up, and that is changing the cost of the project throughout its life cycle. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. Once you get a bulletin or an RFI, that could turn into a potential change. and you need to review it, and you need to get in touch with subcontractors, which will provide you a quote on, how much is it going to cost to do that. Then you turn that into a change proposal that your owner is going to review. And even when that's approved, you still need to upstream that into the owner contract, and then you also have to downstream it to the subcontractor or trade contractors. That takes a lot of time where you're doing it by hand. Like when you're getting quotes through email, when you're doing the tracking through Excel, that is really painful. And then the other thing is that we use, it's not like we don't use a digital approach to this. We do. We use a system that, unfortunately, it's very accounting driven, so it's not very friendly to the project management staff, and it's just slow. So we need to get away from it, right? And I'm not talking about, I don't want to talk bad about these tools, but a lot of these systems are legacy systems. And so, yeah, when you compare them to doing it by hand, it was an amazing implementation. But some tools, they're dying, right? So we can't stay using that implementation that was done maybe 20 years ago. So now we're switching things over, but it's not as simple as just like, people usually think that implementing a new tool is just like going into the store and buying it. Like, it's not like that, right? You need to test things, and especially when you have information that's been integrated, like moving from one tool to the other, you need to make sure that the information, it's moving the right way, that is showing what it's supposed to. You want to make sure that the information that the project managers are processing makes sense to them, but it also makes sense to the accounting team. So there's been a lot of testing done, and then you also need to customize templates and documents that are going to be the output from your project management tool. And eventually you need to start like creating the training piece for it, like the documentation for training that you're going to provide to both internally and externally. So it's a lot of work. And the idea is that in the future, we're going to be struggling with something else, but this will be, a pain that can be left in the past.
You're plugging a hole in the leaky bucket. It will just appear somewhere else, hey? Do you guys use Procore?
We do not.
No. Ooh.
We do not.
Yo, you may be the first person we have on from the innovation side that says, well, obviously not the only, but that we've asked this question to, that has said that they don't use Procore. Is it the other big one?
Yes. So we use, I don't know the way you said it. I don't know if I can pronounce it here, but we use Autodesk Construction Cloud.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. So we implemented their project management solution built back in 2021. It was fresh out of the oven. We were probably, don't quote me here, but we were probably one of the first companies to go for it. This was back in January 2021. And we started with a pilot approach. We wanted to change. We were using other project management systems in the past. They were just not as intuitive, and there was a lot of room for improvement. And we decided to give it a try on one specific project. That was the goal. We wanted to test it on one specific project. And it went pretty smooth. Of course, there was a lot of heavy lifting in the beginning, setting up templates and trying to understand what was the goal that we wanted with all the features that they had. I have a beautiful presentation about it that I usually say, don't fall for the sales guy. They're going to pitch you all the features that they have. But in reality, you need to pay attention to what matters to you and what you can actually handle. So instead of like focusing on all the things that we could have done, we identified the things that we wanted to do, which were RFIs, submittals, document management, punch list, and mobile access. So everything else was like it was bell and whistles. It's awesome. It's cool that you can do it, but we need to improve our RFIs, submittals, what I mentioned, right? And that's what we focused on. And
makes sense. It
was a great implementation. We struggle with it because it's new, and there was not a lot of content for training back in the day. Now there's a lot available, but the project was so good that instead of we were planning to do another project, and we just did a company-wide implementation. That's how good it went. I would say that the biggest thing here is that we noticed how efficient our team was becoming by using the tool, how connected the field and the office were, and also how we were allowing our subs to do some of the tasks that we were doing in the past. So, for example, with RFIs, where when there was a question, subs will send us an email, and then we will turn that email into a formal RFI. Like we will manually take their information, put it in an RFI form, and send it to the architect. At the same time, the PM had to go into his Excel log and mark down who asked the question, when he received it, when he sent it to the architect, and so on. You can imagine like how frustrating that is.
Pain.
And eventually, you know, when we implemented this, we're like, oh, now subs can actually create the RFIs themselves. We just need to review them now, which takes a lot, takes a lot of time away from us. We're still looking at it, and then we decide if we want to send it to the architect or not. But the system is recording all the timestamps for us. So that was, I would say it's a game changer because you're making your process more streamlined. You're also, you can say, democratizing the access to the tool, because now, you're not the only one managing the RFIs. Like subs can go in and they can start the RFI right from the field. They have a question, they can even take a photo, they can attach it to the RFI. And, that's something that we liked a lot. And it was a no-brainer to go for a company-wide implementation.
Very good. How many, do you know roughly how many the tech tools you currently operate on?
Oh, man.
Is it like, are we talking like 50 or less, or like 10 or less? Like how I guess maybe the word is how, if you're doing more than like 50, then you probably need to look at some consolidation.
Yeah, we're not doing more than 50. I don't have an exact number for you. I apologize, and I should know that number. You're exposing me here. Oh,
no, rough. Like, is it? I guess like just to grasp like the kind of operation that you manage, and like how you guys feel. Because to lead to my follow-up question would be to that. Then would how you view integrations with your main project management software system. Like, is it essential when you're assessing new technology that they integrate to your existing system?
Okay, so I wouldn't say it's essential, but it's always part of the grading list. So we typically do a choose by advantage table, and we list the things that we need to address as our problems, right? If we take the Autodesk example, we were looking into submittals, RFIs, mobile interaction, all that, and we will pretty much give it a grade. And then when we go out there in the market, we start exploring how they fit this criteria, right? And sometimes it's not only features, it's also like ease of use, like the interface plays a role as well. But integrations, it's always on the list. I don't want to say that it's the most important thing. I guess that in the future, as we get more and more digital, integration is going to be a key role. Like it's going to be essential to what we do. But right now we're still going through digitizing our workflows, like that is more important right now. When you hit the moment where like you're getting annoyed because you have to do something multiple times because they don't integrate, I think that's awesome. I think that tells you that your staff is already understanding like how we could improve and where to like remove waste, like take it from a lean concept there. If I tell you that we look for integrations from the get-go, that would be a lie.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
I do have to say that when we're exploring our project management platform, we needed to make sure that it was going to integrate with our ERP system. Like that, it was key on that particular case. But we have reviewed other tools. Like we recently reviewed a CRM. We honestly are not worried if it talks to the ERP or not. It's not a concern at the moment.
Makes sense.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
How does tech? Do you have like a process, like a step process each technology solution goes through to be implemented by you guys? Is it like, how does it work from initial? Okay, we know we have this problem. How do you guys then go and scout the market to then testing and piloting to then rolling out company wide?
Well, you pretty much went through the process right there.
That was unintentional.
Yeah. But, the key is that, like I mentioned before, we want to map out the needs that each department has and, the struggle that they're going through. And then we start creating what we call kind of like the ideal solution, what it looks like. So we start asking around, hey, if you could like build it yourself, what exactly would this look like? And sometimes, it's interesting because sometimes some people, they won't say anything, but others are very creative. And they will tell you, well, I would like the system to do this and that. And that is so valuable for us because when we go out there, that is useful information that we can use. And then once we get all this data internally, because keep in mind, the most important thing is you don't want to go out into the market to start looking for a solution and then show it to your staff without knowing what they need, because they're the ones that are going to use the tool. So you really want them to provide the input so that you can actually know what you're looking for. Imagine like going out and buying a car and not knowing the purpose of the car, right? Then you go out there and you buy like a super nice looking sport car and they're like, oh, we were going to be off-roading. Like, we can't do anything with this, right? So, listen to your team. And once you do, what we typically go for is, in my role is, I start exploring what's available in the market. And the reason I do this by myself, it's because you're going to run into, it's not going to be one or two companies. You're going to run maybe into 10, 15 software that can do that, right? I mean, depending on the solution, you may have a few, but some of them, like if you're exploring the project management solutions market right now, there's so many, right? So you want to do that, by yourself maybe, or with a small team, and then you can start based on the criteria that you guys have defined. You can shortlist them, and then at that point, you may want to set up kind of like what I call demo days, where you have the solution provider come in and do a demo with the smaller team or the decision makers. And then we use this choosing by advantage matrix that I mentioned to you to kind of like grade and have conversations and interaction. After that, we just need to continue dialing down into the one that we believe we want to go for. And the reason I say that you want to dial down into it, it's because if you sit down with a solution provider, and again, they're going to bring the salespeople and they're going to be pretty smart and they are going to like wine you and dine you. They're going to say amazing things.
I love that. They're going to be pretty smart.
Yeah. They know they're going to say what you want to hear, but you want to set up time to actually grill them. You want to tell them like, hey, in our previous meeting, you said that your tool is capable to automatically identify doors. Let's say that we're talking about a quantity takeoff tool, like an estimating. So what happens is that I'm not here to diss some companies, but I'm just want to put some concrete examples. When they showed you that on their demo, they had a really good drawing. It's kind of like prep for it not to fail.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what do you call it? Like it's a control environment.
Yeah, it's like a magician, right? A magician's trick.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, hey, we love what you did last time. However, here's the set of drawings that we will typically use.
Yeah.
Can you show us what that looks like?
Yeah.
The idea here is not to make them look bad. You just want to use the data that you're going to be using on a daily basis to actually review how is the output, what kind of output you get, right? So bottom line is you have to do a little bit more digging than just like the first intro. Like, also you may be able to ask them for not only for like a demo, but give me a trial. Like I want to use the tool for a period of time. So that way you can actually test it out and double check that the system is doing what they're stating. and then, it makes it easier on you and then your staff as well when you're going through the implementation. So let's say that now you identified the solution. You obviously have to go through the legal and, getting a contract and all that. And you want to, define a deployment date. Make sure that you are communicating when you want to have that already out there. You want to identify a pilot project. And then if it's possible, you may want to identify what a potential company-wide implementation can look like. But the pilot project is the key there. Some people like to go to company-wide right away. That is, it's kind of like a recipe for disaster if you think about it, because what happens is that when you go company-wide, you may be able to see an uptick in productivity because people, they'll go from something that is, let's say, by hand into something digital. So they're going to do it faster. but you're running into the problem of like not having a standard. And when people start doing things one way, it is really hard to make them change. So ideally, before they start using the tool, you want to have a process in place or training ready for them so that they're doing it in the way that the company is benefiting from.
Very good. So after pilot, we go to company rollout. What does it? How do you? Oh my goodness, where's my question? I was getting to like the timescales of a pilot. Do you have set goals when you're approaching these people? Like, we want to be out of pilot phase within 30 days. Does it depend on the technology? Do you have like a benchmark that you try and hit, which is not always possible, to determine whether a tool is good? And I suppose maybe the broader question to this is how you ensure a successful pilot.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I cannot give you a specific time frame of what a pilot looks like, because just like what you mentioned, it depends on the tool. It's not the same to deploy a CRM system than it is to deploy a project management system. So there's solutions that you can easily say, hey, we tested it for a full week. It looks good. We're good to go out with everything else. That's what we did when we roll out our digital signatures program. We were able to test it on a couple projects, and we were able to get the signatures back and look good. There was no reason to hold the company back into that. Of course, we were also under fire because we needed to like get contracts done anyway. So there was a little bit more. It was a little bit more rushed than a typical implementation. But then, like I said, if you're going to be testing something that is very delicate, like accounting, you don't want to rush that. You want to make sure you understand kind of like even edge cases that you could be exposed. And that's probably going to take a full project, or at least halfway, you know? We have done other implementations, like let's say like we use a tool for closeouts, and it only took us like a month because we just needed to do one job. Once we tested it, we understood that this could like improve the way we do things and that it was very friendly. We just rolled it out company wide, and that was simple. But I can see us, let's say, in this particular implementation that we're going through now, connecting our project management to our ERP. That's gonna take more than 8 months for sure. Now that being said, that doesn't mean that you cannot do a scale, like a phased out implementation. So, one of the things that we're going to be doing first is creating contracts. And then if you feel comfortable with the way contracts are created, you can start rolling that implementation to other pilots or other projects. And as you get more features that you feel comfortable with, you start rolling them out. It's not like a full, like, don't think about it as it's a full thing and that's it. If you can break it into small things, that's totally doable. But you want to be careful too, because you don't want to create confusion in your staff into like what tool to use and when to use it. So again, communication is going to be always key.
Do you guys have a budget of innovation each year? Like, do you have an allocated pot to say like we're going to spend, I don't know, $1 million, whatever it might be, on finding new tools this year? Okay, you don't have to reveal the number if that's confidential, but just curious as to the process.
Yeah. So the way we manage some things is we have obviously our technology expenses, right? So there's just expenses that we have to go through every year, and that's going to include not only technology related to like servers and things like that, but also it incorporates like our project management systems as well, right? On top of that, we also have what we can call like an R&D budget, which is, I like to call it like your burn money in a way. Why do I call it that way? I like to make sure that there's no expectation that there's going to be a positive ROI out of that budget, because you are going to use that money to test things and explore, and maybe you'll be able to turn it into a positive, but maybe it's just money that you pretty much burnt out. So that's something that some companies don't have, and it's something that finance staff typically don't like to hear, because obviously nobody wants to hear like you're burning money. It's not just like you're burning money, but it's like you need to test things before you go out. So one thing is, let's say maybe you want to explore using drones or 360 cameras on a project before you even consider that it's going to be an implementation for the company. But you've been to conferences and you see people using the cameras out there, so you could actually like test it out and meet with your project executive or somebody else and try to show them what's possible, and then ask them, hey, what do you think we could do with this? Like, is this beneficial for you? And they might say, no, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do that. Or maybe they can say, that is useful because I could do a walkthrough before a bid, and then I can share this with my bidders so that they have access to a site that's going to be remodeled, but we're not able to visit the site every day. So you start like thinking, okay, well, they said that it is useful, but then you can ask like, okay, so how many remodeling projects do we have? Oh, we only do 1 or 2 a year. Well, okay. So you step back, you're like, there's a use case, but doesn't sound like we're going to use it a lot, right? So then that's why the R&D money it's important. But going back to your original question, every company is going to have a different number. I have seen, and again, don't quote me here, that from other reports, 1.5% of your revenue, it's a good number. I can tell you that not a lot of companies meet that number. It's understandable. I mean, people are just not used to spending in technology, but that is a number that I read on some of the reports that related to construction tech.
I'm curious, and my question is, how do you advise that startups or tech providers build better technology? And you can't use the answer, listen to your customer, or focus on problems and not solutions. We need something unique on this podcast.
Go ahead. Say that again. I couldn't hear you.
The question is, how would you advise startups or tech providers to build better technology? And you can't give the answers, listen to your customer, or focus on problems and not your solutions. And the reason I say that is because everyone says that to us. So I'm looking to see whether you have anything unique.
Man, that is the answer. I mean, this is something that listen, you don't want to fall for the entrepreneur syndrome, which is you fall in love with this solution and then you invest yourself into it. You develop it and then you go out into the market and there's no need for it. And how do you solve that? You need to talk to the people that you believe they're going to use it, right? So I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard because I've been in that position before, going through the entrepreneur route, and I wanted to pitch something so bad, but people just didn't have a use for it. And you just have to be mindful that if you want to sell it, somebody needs to buy it. Like, if you want to make some money, somebody needs to buy it. And that's it. I mean, it sounds simple. I think that you want to enhance your constant communication and also make sure that you are, I mean, it's related to what we talked, but make sure that you have constant feedback, or you have like early testers involved. When you have people that are trying out your system, they can give you so much feedback, and you can make your products even better. And that is something that it's not only for entrepreneurs, or it's not for startups. This applies to big companies too. And we have, like, for example, we have a really good relationship with Autodesk, where like we made it clear that we wanted to be part of as many betas as possible, because the way we want to build that relationship is that they're not sending us a product and we're using it. We are using a product that is helping our staff, but we're also helping them develop it so that it meets our needs. So again, this applies to everybody. I'm not saying Autodesk. This is Trimble, Procore, ArchiCAD, any company. You want to build a really good relationship with the actual users of the tool and make sure that you are delivering their needs. You're tackling their pain points.
Fair enough. I was thinking in my head, maybe you say something like the most of the design interfaces on tech tools sucks or something like that. Any hot takes?
Well, one thing that I would say is, and I think some companies are doing a great job at this. In order for you to build a solution, if you think about it, you just need somebody that can work on the user interface and somebody that works on the back end. And all of a sudden, you can build an app with that. I'm not saying it's gonna be perfect, but it's gonna work. However, coders are typically that. They're coders. They're not necessarily in the construction industry. And I remember that I've seen solutions that look pretty cool, and they're like, oh yeah, you can pull all this data. And I'm like, nobody's going to use that data, man. Like, that is not useful in any way. Because they tell you something like, oh, you can connect this to a BIM model, and now you can extract the volume of your door. And I'm like, that's not useful. Like that's not useful. Now, if you tell me the width and the height, that will be more useful. But where I'm trying to go is they see it as data, and I can understand because the background that some of them have is like, get the data into it and let's put it on a dashboard and like show how we can retrieve that information. But that's not how it works. So I think that some companies, they can benefit from like hiring staff that works in the industry or has been in the industry. I'm not actively saying poach people, but go out there, hire somebody that can give you the insights of what the people from the field actually need. And that's like, you have your cheat sheet in house. They can tell you this is useful, or I can understand because when I was on the job site, this is the things that I was looking for. So make sure it's not just developing a tool. It's developing the tool using knowledge from staff that have experience too, or that can talk the language, like they can speak the construction language.
What's your guys? We need to ask everyone this question right now, but what's your position on AI?
Man, that is the hot question. Every time I go into a podcast or something, that's what comes up.
I'm sorry. It makes great content.
It makes great content. Yeah, I can see the shorts and everything. It's just about AI all of a sudden.
Yeah, basically, it's like we've tried not to avoid it, but to sort of like not pay too much attention to it. But honestly, you just can't avoid. Like it's everywhere, and it just so happens to be that when you put some kind of post or any article or whatever about AI, everyone's like it causes a bit of commotion. So
you get more clicks. Yeah, okay. So I just hope that you don't. If you take a quote, please don't take it from here, because like I've talked about so much stuff. Things like AI. No, but
I know. Yeah.
So AI, I think it's exciting. I think it's we're getting a glimpse of what's going to be possible later down the road. Actually, we just got a notification today that this week, Autodesk released their AI assistant. So you can see how, and then how they're like rolling it into the different solutions. And my point is, there's going to be more exposure, but we're still going through this phase where like we don't necessarily have like super tangible things that you can say AI is solving this particular problem. And when you introduce people to AI, they get hyped about it and then they fall flat, because when they go into the field to use it or like do something that's actual tangible, they don't get the results that they were sold. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic. What I'm trying to say is it's important to be mindful of what's going to be possible or what we are going to achieve and the impact it's going to have to our industry. We're not there yet, but this is great though. It's the perfect time to get our staff AI ready. This is a good opportunity for you to start providing training and teaching people like, what is AI? How does it work? What are some things that you could do? What are some things that you shouldn't do? And instead of seeing it as a way, like, let me push it and like, let's get people into jump to AI. No. Let's work on creating this AI literacy. And part of the things that we've done as a company is that we made sure that we spend some time creating our AI acceptable use policy so that we are releasing it out there for everybody so that they know what it's good, what we can use AI on, what they shouldn't use AI on, and what if some specific uses that they need approval before they do that. So an example would be, if we're going to be reviewing a contract, well, we don't want everybody to be like inputting information out there about our fees and about our numbers, because again, we got to double check that this tool is not feeding that information back into their system, right? You don't want somebody to go later and ask like, what is company XYZ fee, right? So you want to put it out there, you want to train people. And then something else that we're going to do is a training, just showing them, what is possible, how they could use it for the day-to-day. I mean, it's great for like content creation, I guess, or like RFP writing and things like that. But if they're using their AI to build a schedule for a project, I mean, okay, let's take a step back and let's see what we can actually do. I mean, you're still going to get good results, but I mean, can you rely on it 100%? No, we still need your input, right? So I think it's exciting. I think that we need to be mindful that we don't want to oversell what AI is capable of doing right now. And we want to use this time as an opportunity to train our staff, get our documentation ready so that we can say that we are an AI ready company, basically.
Very good. I like it. Ariel, okay, to wrap up, how do you see the role of a general contractor evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? This is a visionary question. There's obviously no right or wrong answer. It's just interesting to hear people's takes.
Yeah. I think it depends on the size of the company. There's GCs that are, when we talk about in the $1 billion, that I can see them using more interesting developments like robotics. You could, like you can think about Spot, doing a laser scan around and things like that. But I'm going to take it back into something that's a little bit more boring, maybe. But let's say to the small, medium-sized firms, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done when it comes to a digital-ready industry. And in the next years, probably in the next 5 years, we're still going to go through general contracting companies implementing new solutions to improve their processes. But a lot of the processes, they fall down into, they need like digital input from subcontractors. So there's going to be a lot of training that needs to be done. So let's say, if you're using Procore and you're like asking them to provide their bill through Procore, well, you need to make sure that your subcontractor can actually do that, right? That they can actually create an SOV on the platform and that they're able to do all that, right? So that requires training. And I believe that the role that the GCs are going to play is that they need to be mindful that you need to do upstream and downstream training. What do I mean by downstream training? Like I said a moment ago, you need to train your subs. You want them to do certain things digitally, you're going to have to spend a lot of time getting them to like collaborate digitally. And when I say upstream, is that you want to also train your clients so that they can see why these technologies are needed. So that way they can see how this is benefiting them as a client and their projects. And when they go out to bid on the next one, it becomes a standard. Like, I mean, if you're not going to come in here with a digital platform that I can access at all time and look at photos of my job sites and whatever, or if you're going to be providing me with a drone report every week or every 2 weeks, I don't want you on my job site, right? But that requires training the client. And like I said, it requires training also the subcontractors as well. And that's, again, like I said, it's boring, but in order for us to be a digital industry, there's a lot that we need to do first.
Very good. Very realistic. Okay, Ariel, any initiatives you guys have got going? We let people plug anything at the end here. Are you hiring? Are you looking for a certain technology? Are you hosting some fun event or something like that? Or how about your podcast, maybe?
Yeah, well, as a company, we're hiring. If you're in the Michigan area, or if you can share this to somebody in the Michigan area, we're looking for project managers, superintendents, PEs, you name it. I mean, we're growing. We have a lot of projects, and it's an exciting time. It will be awesome if you can, just apply. So you can also go to miller-davis.com and you'll find many positions there that we have open. Now, on the other end is, like you mentioned, I have a podcast with a colleague named David Barco. He's from Spain. We discuss technology for our industry. And it's catered to the Spanish-speaking community. So if you're in Spain, Latin America, or if you know how to speak Spanish, give it a try. It's called Social Tech. And the idea there is that we wanted to say, technology that is impacting your social life as well. So, but more focus on in the construction side. And then, one last couple words is, I just want to say that we are in exciting times for the industry. We are jumping into a very disruptive time, and there has never been as many solutions out there. So it is exciting, but I also have to be careful. Do not fall for the next shining toy. I have done that, and in the end, it just hurts, right? So you want to be mindful. Make sure that you are staying true to your values as a company and making sure where you're going to make sure that you identify the right solution for you, for your team, for your staff, for your company. And just be mindful that change is hard. It's not, you could be excited about it, but it's not going to be as exciting for everybody. So you have to always keep pushing forward, because we have an industry that is very, very, very manual, doesn't have many digital processes, and you're going to be fighting against that. It's exciting when you see the result. It's very rewarding, and you just want to keep doing it.
Very good. I love it. Cool, Ariel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Owen. Have a good one.